Yesterday, the Prime Minister suggested that he would do something to stop trans women from competing in sport against women who were born women, which is something that's been pushed by the Liberals candidate Warringah and by Liberal Senator Claire Chandler.
Well, I think I've already conveyed my own personal view on these matters, and I welcome Catherine Deves' selection, and I was very pleased to play a role in that. I think she's raised very important issues, and I think Claire Chandler has also been very outspoken and brave on these issues, and I share their views. And we have more to say about that at another time than I will. Well, we'll deal with that another time.
But then today, two members of the Liberal left, Simon Birmingham, Andrew Bragg, went on radio saying, yeah, sure, they welcomed this discussion. They really did welcome the discussion. But really, this had to go through the committees, Parliament, had to seek all views and blah, blah, pushing back. And even one of Morrison's own factions sounded cold on the idea.
Do you support that move?
Well, look, this is not quite as simple an issue.
Do you support it?
Look, I support the conversation.
So was Scott Morrison just teasing us with this, or did he mean it? Maybe he went too far, I don't know, we'll see. But in the United States, there is now exactly this same debate. Joining me is Sky News US correspondent Annelise Nielsen. Annelise, great to catch up with you. How is this debate playing out in the United States, and what's driving it?
Well, see, this is one of the really fascinating things that I've been watching. It's really interesting to see what topics get picked up in Australia from the United States. And you'll remember during the BLM protests of, oh gosh, we're talking 2 years ago now, when the Prime Minister was saying we need to be careful not to import issues from the US. This does seem to be one picked up, especially by Conservatives. But it's not quite the wedge issue that a lot of people make it out to be. Even if you look at Andrew Bragg's comments, he says that he believes that the protections already exist within current legislation. So he's not saying that we should go away from having this discussion altogether or looking at this topic. This has been a hugely popular topic among Conservatives in the US, especially when you go to CPAC. It's one of the main topics that they talk about at Trump rallies. It's always a crowd pleaser. And a lot of it comes down to the publicity around this Leah Thomas, the college swimmer, who comes out and identifies as a woman and then is competing in these swimming events. And the biggest critics of that have been the other women that Leah Thomas identifies as a woman, of course, but they say he has a biological advantage for having. It's really hard. You have to really be careful about your language here. But it's the other women in these categories say, look, there's a clear advantage here. And this is where the huge pushback has come from. And I know when I'm out in the US talking to voters, often it's something they don't want to talk about on camera. They say, oh, don't know much about that. And then as soon as the camera stops rolling, they've got a lot of opinions, but they're scared to talk about it. So I think Anne Ruston's quite right there to say, look, it's a conversation we should have.
Yeah, I know, but they're not taking a position. I think lots of people in public and private do have this view. When you look at Leah Thomas, clearly the body, the physique of a man, how can women compete against him or her, she? But Florida's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, he didn't seem to have any worries about trampling onto this contested area. Last year signed a law banning trans women from competing on girls' teams at school. Why did he do that? And have other states now done the same?
Well, because it's been hugely popular, and this Don't Say Gay bill has received huge criticism, especially from the White House. It's come out multiple times and said that it's really discriminatory. But if you look at the Don't Say Gay bill, it's quite specific in that it's about what's in the curriculum for children under the age of 7. And I think for any of us casting our minds back to what it was like when we were in school at that age, it's just not really what you'd expect to be on the curriculum. You think you're doing numbers, letters, you're learning about animals, colours, shapes. And so when you start thinking about this kind of curriculum and what's coming out in a lot of these stories from these schools is really quite progressive, political, and there's a lot of support from parents to say, look, we'll have those conversations at home with our kids. We don't need to have them in the classroom with the teachers telling them this. And this has become incredibly divisive, and it's exactly why Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia. When all the polling said he wasn't going to win, he picked up on this, kind of just going back to basics with schools, taking all the politicisation out of curriculums, and it's what parents wanted.
Yes, the Don't Say Gay bill is about stopping children, teachers teaching children from kindergarten to grade 3 about gender fluidity and gender roles and sex and all that kind of stuff. He said, no, you don't do that unless it's age appropriate. Annelise, there was this FBI raid in Washington last week that really caught my attention. It was like, you know, getting the big build up and then no follow through. I didn't hear the story. It strikes me actually as a very big deal, but we're hearing very little about it. Two men arrested, allegedly claiming to be working for US intelligence somehow. They cultivated 4 FBI agents who have been suspended. They had lots of money. They were handing out free apartments or whatever. What on earth is going on here?
This is just such a strange story. And I was looking at some of the court hearing evidence from yesterday, because they are trying to, the defence lawyers representing both these men are trying to get them out. And it does seem like they were just completely delusional individuals who'd created this whole world for themselves as Secret Service agents. The scary part is how many other people they dragged into it. So they're living in this luxury condo building in Navy Yard. So this is a suburb in Washington, D.C. that's fairly new, a lot of new buildings. It's kind of known for being where a lot of law enforcement and Republicans live there, especially. And these people just put themselves out to be Secret Service agents and managed to convince so many others of it. But it seems like there wasn't actually any money going into this. In the court hearings yesterday, they were saying that there was a huge debt that they owed in their rent and what they were giving to other people. It's terrifying that you've got these Secret Service agents thinking that they can take free rent from people and there's nothing untoward on the other end of it. I mean, who just gives someone a free apartment without any kind of paper trail? And they had a lot of guns in their apartments too. This is really interesting stuff. And just how many people in the building worked in government as well, were dragged into it in a social sense. And I mean, they had for some reason, been handed the codes for access to the building that they could get into any apartment. There's questions about how much surveillance they had over other members of people working for the government. And in all this, the only reason it got picked up is because someone was investigating a post office worker being assaulted. And then he came and they said, oh yeah, no, the Secret Service agents watched this building. And he went, oh, that's not quite right. And started asking people in the building. And next minute, there's FBI agents completely raining down on the building. I think the interesting thing with this isn't going to be that it happened, but that it happened for so long. And so many people who were supposed to be trained to pick this up missed it.
All right. So 2 Walter Mitty characters with no money instead of 2 well-serviced, well-financed secret agents being moles. Golly gosh, well...
Well, we don't know. They could be saying that. This could be the cover, right?
I don't know. I rather suspect it might be. Who knows? We shall find out more. Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for your time.